I'm not sure how this is going to work. Preparing to stream the meeting. Setting up your meeting for your YouTube live. Done. Redirecting to YouTube. And here we go.
All right.
Oh, so I'm on. So as soon as I hit record, or as soon as I hit stream, it started streaming, but it didn't tell me that it started streaming, but it's streaming. So
Oh,
we're
good.
good.
All right. We're live to billions of people on the internet thanks to YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least possibly billions, but
So because of our challenges with technology today, we've got a little bit of a different setup. So hey, we're gonna go with it.
yeah, even sometimes software doesn't get along.
Because when life gives you lemons, you suck on the lemon and you pucker up. You go for it.
Well, I appreciate you, man, making it work. And I also just wanted to thank you again for making it work last week. I got hit with a doozy of a flu, and I don't think I would have been much fun on here. So appreciate you.
Hey, my pleasure. We take it up. We get it done.
So,
What was
mm,
that? What was that like? I'm curious. I know that was one of the so you'd come up with some fun topics, and we're gonna go with another one. But I want to ask you about that. Like, what is that like for you? Like, yeah, when you're down and out like that, like, what is that like for you? Like, how do you feel? Never mind just physically, but then all of a sudden it's like all this stuff because you do a lot for your family, for you, for your business, for your kids, a ton, and then all of a sudden that all stops essentially. And is there a sense in you that you're like, I just got to keep going. I got to keep going. Like, I got to just do it. I got to get it done. I don't care how I feel. Or, yeah, what was that? Yeah, what is that like?
yeah, good question. Um, it's better now. There used to be a time when I would be really, hard on myself and struggle a lot with just how much I want to be doing and think I should be doing versus am able to do. I'm in a lot better place now with being able to surrender and realize that by, trying to push through it, I will likely make it worse and or it will prolong the amount of time that I'm sick. So I've gotten better at surrendering and being okay with, not being in the game, so to speak. And even finding things that I can do even when I'm just out. So yes, I'm far better at being able to let go, being able to surrender. My wife stepped up quite a bit and took on quite a lot while I was out, and I'm yes, fortunately can do still a lot on the laptop, so I still feel like I'm able to contribute. But from a health perspective, I just also learned a tremendous amount to surrendering, listening to my body, let it do what it needs to be, let it do what it needs to do. Like just even things like, caution, here comes a bit of a dad rant, but like how much awareness I now have about what's going on, like what my body's trying to do. Like it's got a fever, it's telling me that and I've got the chills, so I've got a warm temperature, but at the same time I'm freezing, and yet it's like almost summer here. It's like spring. It's super warm out. So like what is my body trying to tell me? And it's like, well, I want you to warm yourself up. I want you to get hotter so that we can fight this thing off. Oh, okay, so I'm not going to try and cool myself down. I'm not going to take something to try and alleviate these symptoms. These symptoms are telling me what my body wants me to do. Same at the end of it, where all this congestion starts to come up. It comes up at the very end of this cold or the flu. Like my body wants me now to get rid of all this stuff. I mean, it's gross, but yet I could go to the pharmacy and I could buy all these anti-congestants to stop the stuff from coming out, or I could buy a cough suppressant to stop myself from coughing all this stuff up. But no, that's my body wants to get rid of it. This is all the stuff at the end of the flu, the toxins, the stuff that my body's being, purging and fighting and now wants to get rid of. So let it. So
Mhm.
I guess just where I'm at, it's far better. It's far easier for me to be able to pay attention to what's going on, tune into my own body, surrender to its processes, support it. I drank a ton of one of my favorite remedies is to support my body is like a ton of lemon, like at least one whole lemon squeezed, honey and ginger in like a tea, and yeah, just a yeah. So it's that's a long answer, a bit of a rant to your question there, but I feel like I'm in a much better place to surrender, listen to my body, let it do what it needs to do, get back on my feet. Probably shorter because of all of that, and get and ask for help, and get
Mhm.
allow myself to get the help I need during that time as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think for so much of that, there's a life lesson in there that is really applicable for our kids, for us, in that granted, there is a time and a place for outside intervention. Say, like what's happening with my mom right now, clear example of an emergency situation that needs an outside intervention. And right, so everyone who does know, who hadn't listened, my mom was in a coma because of a viral infection that got into her brain. Anyways, but for the most, so that's a great example of outside intervention, totally needed, get it done. For the most part, when we're going through stuff, whether it be physical, and now we're talking about the physical stuff, it feels so uncomfortable. It's like, I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to feel run down. I just want to get back to my life. The tendency is going to be to just, okay, well, I got to take something from the outside to just mask what's going on the inside so I can just get through. And it's the same with the inside stuff, the stuff that goes on with our minds, stuff that goes on with our kids. They go through something tough. We just go, you know, okay, well, I'll just do it for you, and don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. But then what happens is when by doing that, you're not allowing the kid to learn the thing or actually feel the feeling of challenge and of maybe disappointment or doubt or whatever it is, and have them learn from it, go through it, and then emerge stronger on the other side. Same with our bodies. When we're sick and we're like, okay, just take some drugs and take some stuff to try to just get through it. Well, your body's actually not learning the lesson that it potentially needs to because it actually needs the resources to be able to fight off whatever infection it has to do all that. So you actually become more resilient, stronger, healthier, and better because you've allowed your body to go through it. But we know that, from many, many decades of overprescription of antibiotics and things like that, like we have antibiotic resistant bugs now. So we've got these like super bugs that are, resistant to antibiotics, and we need stronger drugs. And so all this, so it just creates this cycle that creates just weaknesses within our own bodies. And I think the same is happening when we intervene way too early with our kids, when we intervene way too early with all kinds of stuff, is that we just create weak kids because they don't know what to do when faced with adversity. They don't know what to do when they're faced with these feelings of doubt and guilt and worry and whatever it is. But I mean, one of the things I love about so when my kids scrape their knees or feel sick or have a cough or a fever or whatever it is the first thing I always tell them is your body is amazing. It knows exactly what to do. Your body is healing itself. And so they know so that there's even mentally and emotionally that they know like, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. Like this is perfectly normal. It's okay to feel this way. I don't have to just try to get myself out of this feeling. It's like often we have a book that we read a lot, going on a bear hunt. There's a song, going
Hmm.
on a bear
Right.
hunt,
Yeah.
right? And then they're going through all these different, they're going on a bear hunt, this family, they're going to go find a bear, and they're going through all kinds of different terrain. They're going through it had to cross a river. And so they get to a river and they're like, oh, what do we do? Like, well, we can't go over it. We can't go under it. We're going to have to go through it. And then you make the sounds of going through the different various terrains. And so it's like, well, that's it. To get to where you want to go, you've got to go through it. You can't, there's no skipping reality. And once we try to skip reality, when we try to skip what our bodies are meant to be doing, what our minds are meant to be doing, then it just doesn't work out. So we've got to go through it. So going through that sickness that you went through for the week, like it's not fun, but your body is much better off for it. And there's a time and a place for intervention. Like I said, there's a
Yeah.
time and place when things get serious. There are situations where our kids and like we don't know what to do. We don't know how to handle, and it can get dangerous if we don't. And so that's when we intervene. And that's when outside intervention is totally necessary, not as a fix all, but as like a stopgap to be able to then just continue on afterwards.
Good. Yeah, appreciate what you've added there. And being able to connect that to parenting. This is the dad chat. Yeah, you're right. Because sometimes we don't, it's about that discomfort, right? And we don't necessarily like it for ourselves. And I know I'm probably the same as you, where I don't like to see it in my kids if they're going through something really tough, and I want to take away their discomfort, and I want them just to, but it's that it is a bit of a dance to figure out what discomfort is the right discomfort to go through, and where you're going to get those lessons. And it is a good idea for them to go through it if it's disappointment, or if it's something really difficult, or it is even sometimes, physically challenging. Yeah, what's good discomfort, I guess, versus bad discomfort.
Yeah. And I mean, as parents, so when it comes to when we look at our kids, I mean, I know that if my kid falls off of a 6 inch high little thing at the park, and there's like a gap of like 5 seconds before there's any emotion, and all of a sudden they look at me and then they start to cry. I'm like, okay, well, I know enough about life to know that okay, they're okay, everything's fine. This is like, but if they fell from 8 feet, and even if they got up and their legs were all wobbly, that's a totally different story. And that's where our experience comes in. So we get to be a little bit more of the arbiters of that because of the fact that we've gone through stuff where our kids don't necessarily have that perspective to know that. And so, granted, we make that judgment on a moment by moment basis to know whether, yeah, this is something that you can handle. You're okay. Everything's fine. Or, holy shit, let's go. Got to get out of here.
Yeah. It's and I don't, I just yeah, it's so it takes that experience, and it takes a belief that I feel like gets stronger over time as you learn which ways, what just to be able to discern what's the right level of discomfort for your particular kid for that context, like you shared. Like have you seen this video? I guess it would be on any social channel right now, but it's gone viral for sure. And it's a little kid. I don't know, the kid might be like 2, maybe not even 2, and it's on like a bridge, I feel like, and there's like all these ropes or like strings in the kid's way, and the dad's just I think he just stepped over it and just plowing ahead, and I think the dad set all this up, but the 2-year-old hits this like web and can't get through it. And the dad just kind of looks back and just kind of keeps going. And he's trying to get the kid to figure out, like, and the kid's starting to freak out and cry and be like, Dad, I'm stuck. You're just leaving me.
Hmm.
And this dad, I guess, is trying to teach this kid, like, no, no, you got to figure this out. Like,
Mm.
so I know it's quite controversial, and I'm not saying I support what he's doing here, but I also don't know the full context of it. But I know there's definitely, if you were to read the comments, there would be some people very um, against what he's doing, because it looks like he's torturing this kid. This kid's like probably going through all kinds of emotions about my dad's abandoning me. I'm trapped. He's leaving me. What am I going to do? He's freaking out. I mean, eventually the kid gets through it, and the dad gives him a lot of praise and all this kind of stuff. But
Hmm.
anyways, it's what that came up for me as just an example of what's the right level of discomfort for the kid given their age, given what you think the important lesson is here. Are you going to do more harm than good?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that reminds me of when I was actually before I even had a kid. My wife was pregnant for our kid. We were walking around my neighborhood. My cousin and I were walking around, and we were literally had just been talking about this idea of so many people without kids will try to comment on what parents should do with their kids. And even other parents who have no context, like she was saying, yeah, like we've dealt with enough parents, in our offices and stuff like that to know that like we don't know what's going on with these kids or with these families. So whatever's happening in the moment, there's likely a reason. There's likely way more context than what we're privy to, right? And so as we're doing this, we turn the corner and we're walking right behind. Uh, Actually, no, we turn the corner and there's another woman who's pulling or she's pushing a stroller who's coming the other way. So we kind of cross her, and her kid, it was like, it was not winter, but it was like late fall, I believe. And so it was pretty cold outside. Kid is sitting in there with no sock and no shoe on. So his legs just kind of hanging out and it's cold outside. And in the moment, my cousin, granted, we were just having this conversation. She's like, oh my God. Like just in a really sarcastic voice, like, oh my God, can you believe what that parent is doing to that kid? Like as a joke, because we had just been talking about that.
Okay.
And this mom turned around and I guess heard my
Oh
cousin
yeah, yeah.
and she freaked out. She's like, "You have no idea what's going on with us. My kid is fine. He will not put a sock on. We're on our way home, blah, blah, blah." And my cousin was like, she felt so bad. I felt so bad too. I'm like, no, 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 sorry. We were just joking around. I know it's okay. But I find it just fascinating that, like, the people who are intimately involved know way more about what's going on. And it's like, don't like for the most part, when you see parents out there doing their thing, like, don't worry about it. They've got it handled. Like they're going through it. There's some context so many times that we have no concept of. Granted, when and again, there are extremes that, things are on the fringes or outliers, situations where things are clearly out of control or clearly things are like not being dealt with properly, and there's a time for intervention
Sure.
for that. But for the most part, it's like we need to give people more grace. And I find the people who are the most opinionated about parenting are the ones without kids.
Right. Yeah, it's easy to yeah, yeah. Yeah, like in this example of this video, like, there could be so much more context that we don't know. Maybe this is the 100th time that they've crossed this bridge, and the first time he had one little string for the kid, and the kid got over that, and then he added another one, and like, who knows, right? Maybe this has been a whole thing that he's done versus just one time, and maybe he's not actually going to create this traumatic memory for his kid. Or maybe
Right.
he is, and there does need to be some conversation there around like, look, this is not going to get you what you're trying to do for this kid. This is going to create all kinds of resentment and abandonment patterns, and who knows what else.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all such a fun game we're all trying to play.
So yes, the so searching for a topic for today, I did what, most people do nowadays. I fed a question in a chat GPT, and we do have a custom GPT of, I haven't given it episodes in a little while, but it's got our first 30 episodes. And I asked it, okay, well, based on everything that we've talked about so far, what are some important topics we haven't talked about? And the number one on the list, which is actually, probably near and dear to both of our hearts, is around like support, around friends, dad support groups.
Mhm.
And I thought that would be, given that we've both, well, we're great friends and we've been in men's groups and we've, been able to receive and give that level of support. I thought that'd be a great topic for us.
Mhm. I think just on it ties into what we were just talking about people outside of the parenting bubbles really don't understand. Like it's hard, and I'm not criticizing them for this, but it's like it's so hard to understand what it's like to be a parent when you're not a parent. It's like I can look at I could look at the life of Elon Musk and think that I know what's happening and think that I know, people will paint him. It's so funny right now because you think Elon Musk is one of the most polarizing characters, on the planet right now
Mm,
for some obvious, some not so obvious reasons. But it's like when you take a step back and go like, okay, well, what does that guy go through? Like, what does that guy go through in a day?
mm,
Like, what is his, like, when you start to really unpack it, it's like, whoa, like I have no idea. Like, it's
right.
so foreign to me. yet we're so quick to pass judgment on who this person is or what they're doing. And I find that so it's the same with parenting. I mean, something that I remember, and this is not like a judgment thing, but I remember when I became a dad, one of the things that I remember someone saying, I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about like it unlocked, like becoming a dad just unlocked this part of their heart, of their soul that they didn't even know existed. It's like they didn't even understand that they could love something so much. Like they thought they were like madly in love with their wife. And like there's not like they like how can I love anything more than my wife? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
insane. Like I love my
Mm-hmm.
wife so much. It's crazy. But then this kid comes along, it's like, oh no, like you would it's like you'd almost throw your wife in front of the bullet to save your kid. Like that's how much you love this kid. And it's like I didn't understand that. I could conceptualize it, but it's like I didn't know, I don't have any reference for that. But then when my kid came, I'm like, oh my God, like, yeah, like I get it now. And I find there's so much in the parenting realm. It's like I had no concept of what it's like until I actually experienced it. Then it's like, oh, okay, I get it. I get it now. And I think it's a lot easier for us to, well, I think as guys, we tend to be the more lone wolf types. And then once we become dads, the people that will, say if they weren't dads before, then it's a bit harder to not to socialize, but it's harder to relate
Right.
because we have a totally different frame. But now, and then so being around other dads, it's like there's this like unspoken relation that we have
Sure.
that I think is really cool. It's like, yeah, no, you get it. I get it. Yeah, I see what's happening here. And I think also when I hear of people who have even never mind just one kid, or even if the first kid and they're younger, or if they have a bunch of kids, like there's like a level of respect that I have for these people without even knowing anything about them. I'm like, okay, yeah, you got this handled. You
Yeah.
keep doing this.
I mean, right out of the gates, you've got a core set of things in common, right? That you can bond around.
Yeah.
Where you might not if you're, without kids or single. It takes might be a little more effort, or the amount of stuff you have in common may be smaller, or it's harder to find people that you do have that same level of stuff in common with. But yes, you're right. Parents get each other maybe just that much more. And, I think like what I heard you saying is we will, the decisions we make have a lot more factors involved. Like a lot of things that we're doing or thinking about or deciding upon are going to involve the kids to some degree. Like what are we going to be spending our finances on, or what are we going to do for a vacation, or I mean anything that's going. How am I going to spend my time? There's more people that are now involved in that decision that are going to be considered in that decision versus just, oh, I just get to think about me or just me and my spouse. But yes, it reminds me of our first, well, no, actually, I've started a few men's groups, but the one that I'd started almost 10 years ago now, nine and a half years ago now, started out as just a pure men's group with different, just men in general. It didn't have to be a dad, and we had some important criteria around, had to be on a journey of personal growth. That was key. Had to be committed to that growth, wanted to be in a group where you wanted to actually genuinely support other men to help them be their best, and we're wanting to receive that as well. So we had some criteria there, but it was interesting that, at least in my experience, the group that I was in, we had multiple smaller groups and when this bigger network, but the group that I was in eventually kind of filtered and changed itself where it ended up being just dads. And I felt like that ended up being the most, we were able to have, because I felt bad for the guys who didn't, through different iterations, where, because a lot of times the conversations did end up, or a lot of the conversations ended up talking about, kids, or us being a dad and how we were going to support our kids, or even just in relationships with our wives, a lot of times how kid decisions were getting made. And there was a lot of conversations that ended up being about parenting. And so, yes, I felt like at the end, being able to distill that down to just dads, I felt was the most, at least the most helpful for me.
Hmm. Yeah, I've definitely found that too. And I think one of the reasons why I left my most recent men's group was that. Like I felt like the people that I would relate to the best, and this is not good or bad on the other people. This is
Yeah.
not to say something bad about them. It's just like I just found that in that piece of time in my life, I was like, I just had like my bandwidth for anything was so like so razor thin, like what was available. I just felt like I just want to be able to spend time and spend my energy with people that I can totally relate with. Like that's just what I needed at that moment. And I think there's definitely time and place for again for outside intervention, for outside perspectives that for people who aren't in it like us, and that's I think that's important as well, is that people who aren't parents also have an important perspective about things that they see that we may not be able to see. Granted, they don't understand the experience, but there's just a different perspective. And if it's totally off base, well, it's totally off base. But at least there's a different perspective, which can then give us perspective. Like, oh, wait, okay, wait a second. I didn't consider that. There's so much that sometimes because we're so like it's so full on all the time that we don't necessarily get like the outside perspective. We don't get to take a step back,
Hmm.
and which is also is what the kind of the dad container of friends also gives us too. Is just that there's also a different perspective.
Yeah.
They're still in it, but they also have a little bit of a different perspective because obviously they have a different life and they have a different family and all that. But
Yeah.
I found that so key and so important that yeah, I think there's a when people can bond on a certain thing, like people who are rabid fans of whatever sports team or whatever athlete. It's like we feel this kinship right away with that person. It's like we know it's like there's something we know about them already. Like we feel more comfort and feel a bit more trust because of that common bond. And it's like it doesn't even need to go deeper than that. But again, us guys feeling more often that we're, these lone wolf types, just to have someone that we know, like, hey, we're going through this together almost. It's like it gives us this sense of comfort and certainty that it's like, okay, it's okay. I'm not alone. Because
Yeah.
I think I find so much that I can go through things and be like, oh my God, like I'm the only one on the planet that is feeling this way. Like I'm so alone right now. And yet, like we're not. So it's okay. There's lots of people going through the exact same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. On 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 that one point, that was one of the biggest realizations that I had when doing, like having a small group of dads talking about stuff is you'd share something like, man, I'm going through this and it's been a real struggle. And I'll say this to dads maybe that are listening or future dads that end up listening to this. You're right. Like we do have a tendency to think that we need to figure it out on our own. And no, I got to figure this out. And I'm, maybe sometimes we're a little bit shy or insecure or afraid to be vulnerable and talk to other people about it. But man, that was one of the biggest realizations and most helpful things for me was actually being able to create a safe container with other dads and being willing to be real and share something vulnerable. It was always amazing to me how many other guys were like, "Oh yeah, I felt that same way before." "Oh yeah, I've gone through something just like that before." And I'd be like, "Really? Like, okay, like I'm not like, I'm not alone in this."
Hmm.
And I think I don't know, there was something really supportive about that just to realize that like, okay, you know, yeah, I'm not unique in this. I'm not alone in this. Other people have experienced this before. I could get some help with this. But I feel like that took a while, in the journey to get to the place where being able to find a group that you can trust to be able to, share those things, and then being able to realize that, real vulnerability is actually a power and it's powerful. It's not weakness and it's not, and how
Mm.
helpful it is, once you're able to do that.
Yeah, totally. So what do you feel? So if your oldest is 16, just turned 16, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And you started your men's, like the first men's group, but you said about 9.5 years ago.
Hmm.
What do you remember what it was like before that? Like, had it been something that you, 'cause, I mean, you seem to me, not you seem, you are just a connector. Like I've never met anyone who's quite a connector like you. Like you're always like, oh yeah, you got to meet this person. You got to be like, hey, check it. Like, oh, so many things, especially in our just locally, things that I've attended and things that I've been invited to and things like that. It's all been like the key link has been you. And so I don't know if that's something that you, well, it seems like that's something that you did just more naturally or something that you've cultivated within yourself for definitely a longer period of time than just the last 9.5 years. And that's
Hmm.
potentially why that group came about in the first place. But I'm curious, like, what was that like before the group and then after the group?
Yeah. It's a really good question. It's a long time ago. What comes to mind? Um, yeah. What I think of immediately, because I mean that's a long time ago. But I do remember where I was in my journey. And before doing that men's group, it started out with just wanting to do some men's work. And maybe at the time, and I haven't looked recently, but maybe at that time there was a bit of a surge in popularity or awareness for guys to want to do more work together. Like there was a lot of men's groups that I think just started to show up. There's one that's been around for a while now, Man Talks. Connor Beaton, he's
Mhm.
done a really great job there of cultivating great content on his podcast. He's got a men's group, he's got courses. I highly recommend people check that out. Here in Vancouver, there was like the Samurai Brotherhood. There were several different groups, and for me, what really appealed to even before starting our own group, what appealed to me about finding a men's group, and this is what's one of my tips here was like if you are realizing that maybe you could use some help from other dads, there are lots of groups available, whether they're online. Like I know there's lots of men's circles if you want to Google that, or men's groups that just meet weekly online via Zoom. There's Facebook chats. There's going to likely be something local that you can go and just check out once, just no commitment, see what it's like. Or you can start your own. That's what I ended up doing, realizing that the one that we had started attending wasn't quite, well, definitely wasn't right in terms of our values and stuff. So we created our own. But I mean, anyone can do that. If you just start to find dads that you resonate with, whether they're at school or, sitting on the sidelines watching one of your kids' sporting events. That was the other thing that I realized with our men's group is that some of the guys I had never met before. Like I did bring in a couple of people that I knew, but some of the people I didn't know at all. But what we did make sure of is that there was some core principles and core values that we all shared to make sure that it was going to work for us. And again, I shared those before. Personal growth, being committed to supporting one another, and commitment was a big thing, like showing up every week for each other and in this vein of wanting to grow and support one another. So anyways, just as a side tangent, if guys do resonate with this, there are lots available. You can start your own. It really doesn't take much other than just being clear on what you want and what values that are important for you. And, fire up a weekly, Zoom chat and get a few guys to start and get them to invite some guys. And, some guys will filter themselves out. But we did have a whole starter kit actually in terms of how to start your own group and how to read
Mhm.
some books that maybe you could all start to have similar language around. We did have some daily practices, even just a little chat check-in. I felt like all of that fostered, stronger bonds, stronger commitment, and over time, after over 9 years, it was really helpful. Um, so, anyways, that's a bit of a side rant. Back to your initial question, what was it like before all of that? Um, what I realized is I ended up resonating because I didn't have a lot of strong male dad friends, I think I ended up, chatting or aligning or resonating a lot more with my wife's friends, like the mom groups. Like I read, I didn't find a lot of great dad books when we were pregnant. So, I was reading a lot of her books. And so I think I ended up getting this sort of more feminine view of parenting. And I, even for me, where I was, just being, I guess, vulnerable for myself here, like where I was in my journey then, I'd really, I don't know, I'd really kind of put down the masculine part of myself, and
Mm-hmm.
I was really more, I guess, tuned into the feminine part. And they talk about this in the men's groups too. Like you can have like maybe a bit of a wounded or, you know, I don't know what the right word is, but I hadn't fully embraced in a healthy way that masculine part of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that there are several books on this. Like this is a bigger problem for a lot of young men. There's one called Boys Adrift and the Boy Crisis. What can happen is if you are in an environment, and it can be easy, with movies and social media, you can be in an environment where you're like, I don't like all these examples I don't like many of the examples of men that I see on TV or in leadership or, and without some strong role models, what can happen is you're like, well, I don't like what that looks like to be a guy. So you can kind of suppress that part of you. And I realized, I think at that part of my journey, I was doing that. And, I was jealous of other guys and I had a real hard time creating connection with other guys. And so finding this first men's group was like absolute life changing for me to start to really acknowledge what it was in me and what it felt like to embrace more of this healthy masculinity and be around, we had, I'd done this one weekend with, I don't know, at least probably 50 guys, and all this content around how to get guys to really connect authentically and genuinely and really get an experience of healthy masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
So, long-winded answer here, but it was really a dramatic shift for me to realize how to bring out more of that healthy masculinity in me and balance that out with the feminine that we all have. We have both of those energies in us. And so from that place, that allowed me to be able to connect more with other guys healthily. And so anyways, it was from that place, that men's group, and then starting our own, that was absolute, there was a definite before and after life-changing experience there.
Yeah. And what did you feel was like, let's say like day to day, how did you feel more connected? Like how did you feel or how did that show up for you in terms of say like your parenting or your business or anything like that? Like what do you think it gave you that you didn't have before?
Um, I feel like I mean, the big thing that comes up for me is just like being more of me, like authentically being able to show up, like being able to know, um, it really helped just clarify like who I was and my own values and my own voice and be able to speak up and, um, yeah, it's, what, I'm gonna need to think about that a bit. I mean, it was in terms of day to day how it showed up. I know I have these big shifts in terms of how I felt about myself and the world and about other men. Um,
Mhm.
and I can imagine that it created dramatic shifts for how I showed up in terms of just a father as a man for my daughter, for my wife, eventually our son. Um, I guess he was probably already born, yeah, when I started doing this work. And in a lot of sense, I did it for them too. Like I wanted to be able to show up as the best version of me. So I knew I had some stuff in me that wasn't working. Like I was holding myself back. Like I wasn't being able to fully embrace all parts of me. And that was even something I remember thinking about. It's like, man, why I feel like I'm dragging around all these boat anchors. So like I'm holding myself back. Like I'm not being fully me.
Mm.
And I do feel like that space. And that's what I've seen with these young men too. Like in Vancouver here, they have created these support groups for young men. There's the Boys Club Network, there's the East End Boys Club. Like there is just something I think sacred and special and powerful about young men, boys, men being able to be in the company of other men in a safe, healthy way, and then realizing that like, um, how to fully express themselves, you know, in a healthy way, and maybe not in some of the examples that we see externally that we don't think is healthy or aligns with our values. So I don't know. I think that was just one of the big things was being able to feel more alive being me and authentically being able to express all parts of me. I think that was probably one of the biggest shifts.
Yeah, I think one of the things that comes up for me when you're saying it is that one of the that men's group container, one of the things that potentially that it did for you was that it was a the experience of it was more like a rite of passage,
Hmm.
whereas for so many people, like going back, millennia, when boys became men, quote unquote, like there were different rites of passages that they would go through. They'd go through some sort of experience with their elders, with their dads, with their uncles, with their, the people in their communities, and even going through when people were farming more, like, all of a sudden, like your dad and mom would kind of take you underneath their, take you under their wing and show you the ways of the family, like how the family works and how they do things. And they were way more involved. And so we had these rites of passage that allowed us to step into and embody more of that, the responsibility, the kind of the ownership of who we are and how we take care of our clan and our tribe and our family and our land and our surroundings. And for people like you and I, growing up when we did, and even the kids nowadays, like life is so easy, quote unquote, like it's relatively easy. I was listening to something the other day. There's never been a time in history when the poorest people are also the most overweight people.
Mm.
Like usually poverty meant
Right.
starvation,
Right.
meant, all of that. Granted, we're malnourished and overweight, but that's another story. But relatively, it's the easiest time in history to exist, just to exist.
Mm.
And so many, I think, people will kind of just go through this existence and don't have that. Yeah, they haven't had those rite of passages. And so they haven't been shown like this is, to how to care for the things that we're responsible for. And all of a sudden, I mean, there's this thing that happens. I mean, there's this protective mechanism in me that I remember when my daughter was born. It's like I remember, like, okay, like it's game on here. I will do anything and everything to protect this young child. Like I will not eat myself to make sure that she can. And there was, yeah, I think that men's group container and the containers that we create end up being a little bit more those rites of passages for us as grown men, but also then we I think we have seen that play out. And so people, especially who have gotten up to our age, maybe a bit younger, maybe a bit older, have realized like, oh, like all of this stemmed from when I was just young. And so they're now reaching back and trying to create those containers for these young men. I know that one of a mentor of mine, someone that I follow, Dan Martell, who he's big in business and he's written a bunch of books and he's doing it in the SaaS business and stuff, but he also has something that's near and dear to his heart is taking care of young men. He has got a whole group of, he takes care, like he has all these talks and events for kids in Kelowna and wherever he goes, he'll go speak to kids because he remembers what it was like when he was 17 and was in jail and his life was adrift and he wants to create those containers to be able to, to be able to bring up young men. And I think that's so important. And I think for many of us, if we haven't had that, if we haven't had those rites of passage where we don't feel the sense of like we feel the responsibility and know we feel the weight of that of those things that we need to do, those responsibilities that we have, but we don't necessarily feel that within us that we are the capable enough or we're enough for to to meet the moment. And I think these containers really help to distill some of that to be able to allow for those experiences to happen so that we can emerge or we can rise up as the the sovereigns in our world and to be the protectors and the providers in whatever sense that we want, but we need that to be that, I'm the guy that shows up for my family. And that doesn't mean I'm better or worse or that doesn't mean that. I mean, as a family, as a couple, like we have responsibilities and we are equal but not the same. And yeah, I think those men's groups, whatever clique that you kind of get around you, those allow for a greater emergence of us, whether that's through detailed kind of structured work, structured rites of passage. I know my friend Sean was going through that with his 16-year-old, I guess now 16-year-old son. Is he got a bunch of, I think it's happening this year or it happened last year, I can't remember, but he was going to take his son on like a big like canoeing and camping kind of hiking and adventure with him and one of his uncles and like a bunch of his friends and their son, and they were gonna, like, it was like as a rite of passage, like he
Hmm.
was.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's so beautiful, like it's such an amazing thing. And like and everyone had to prepare something that they were going to share with his kid, his son, about like what it's like to become a man and to be a father and to be, responsible in this world and to be the best version of yourself and to like really speak life into him. And I was like, oh my God, like what, like how awesome is that going to be? Like that's going to be, or has the potential to be such a pivotal moment in that kid's life, to know that he's enough and he has community around him and he has people that care for him and that love him and that are looking out for him and that also are looking for him to step up, and all of those things. I thought, man, like so many of us didn't have, I never had that. I mean, I have great parents, but there was that, I think that sense that I would have, I mean, I would have loved that. That would have been amazing looking
Yeah.
back. And then creating those things now more consciously, as opposed to the just that was more tradition before potentially. Now we have to kind of bring back those traditions. And I think there's something really powerful about that.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that is one thing that's in these books that a lot of boys aren't getting, especially in our culture today and in sort of more modern times, is they're not getting that rite of passage. So sometimes they can get stuck as a boy for longer than nature intended. Um, yeah, that's really cool. I have to think about that as well for my my boy. Do you remember shifts? Like, what was your experience, finding, because you had joined the group that I was in. Had you been doing this work before? Do you remember some shifts for you in terms of how it's been able to, was able to impact your life?
I remember a big shift. And I mean, granted, yes, I'd been doing a bunch of work for as long as I can remember, really. It was something that I grew up in with my parents. But there's also, very similar to you, I found myself very much more uh like, yeah, I had a lot more close girlfriends, it seemed. And after a while, especially once my wife was pregnant and when I got married, I'm like, oh, like I had this sense like I just want to be around more guys. Like I just want to have more close guy friendships. It seemed as there's some of the friendships I had before with guys were just much more surface level, and it's like I don't want that. I just did connect with it, and I just wanted something deeper. And so I'd been searching that out, and also I think that it was right around the time where there seemed to be a huge surge in this idea of toxic masculinity and all. There's a lot of talk about that, and I'm like, well, what does that, like? What does this even mean? Like, what does this mean
Mm,
to be a man? Like, what does this mean to be a dad? And I was trying to figure that out because I was about to have a kid, and then that's when, there was also, yeah, like I was invited by you at one of our mutual friends' parties, and then I was like, wow, like I'm like, yeah, this is exactly what I've been looking for. Like, this is perfect. This is an answer to my prayers. And I remember feeling very awkward in the beginning because I just was like, well, who am I in this thing? And I was comparing myself and judging myself, but very quickly I was like, wow, like this is such a great environment. And but yeah, it really allowed me to step into being able to have friendships with other men, to be able to learn from other men, not compare myself to other men, and not feel better than or less than, but just be like, yeah, like I'm just part of the tribe here. and that I had something to contribute, and that I could listen to others and learn from others. So it was a huge shift for me, big time. To now where like I have very, very few, very few like women friends.
It's pivoted the other way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Appreciate you sharing that. Um, yeah, I'm just looking at my notes here. I mean, hopefully guys have heard that this can be a great thing. If you don't feel like you have that support, if you would like some I mean, I guess that was the other thing that a couple other points about how helpful being in a company of men. And usually what I found is the smaller group work is better. Like we kind of maxed out at like 6 or 7 guys on a call. After that, you start getting, well, you run out of time if you want to try and hear everyone's perspectives on different topics. But we did have some practices that again helped foster a stronger bond with the guys. We started out each meeting with something each guy was grateful for, something that maybe they were integrating, like something that was a bit of a challenge for them and they're struggling with right now in their life. That was a practice to help everyone kind of just tune into where everyone was at. Like, I'm grateful for this right now, and everyone can just take a moment to just for maybe it's something you want to celebrate. Maybe you don't have a space to even get to feel good about your accomplishments and how helpful that can be, even to be able to share that into a space. And then we would always start off with something one person, everything, one thing everyone was struggling with maybe at that moment, that week. Um, but again, if this resonates, these groups are out there. They're not hard to create. You can start it even yourself if you grab a few guys that you resonate with from again, the sidelines of your kids' school, or if you attend one of the kids' school events, you're gonna meet other dads there. And what I found too is the guys, when we started growing that group, I mean, we must have had, I don't know, maybe at max 50, 60 guys go through our group there, maybe a bit more. But
Hmm.
we found a lot of the guys with the same values actually, that was one of the places we found the most guys with the same values, was obviously going to a personal growth event. I'd met with a lot of men that I invited to the group at Tony Robbins events or some of these personal growth events, because now you already know that they're into personal growth if they're at one of these events. So that can also be a great way to meet other dads, is maybe going to an event that's not necessarily for dads, but for personal growth. If because largely you're going to want to be in one of the groups to be able to learn and to be able to grow. And
Hmm.
that and that sort of that. There's 2 points I wanted to add. One is, what was really impressive to me was how good guys are at being able to, in the right container, with some of the right tools, and nothing too complicated, but how good guys were at actually solving each other's problems. I was just blown away. I remember doing this 3-man exercise, and I don't remember the exact tools we used in that format, but I know in our own men's group how helpful it was to just be able to share something and be like, well, and that was the second piece then. A, guys are really good at solving these things for each other. B, it was really important to be clear about what you were looking for. Like, I'm sharing this thing because here's what I need. I just need to be able to get this off my chest. I don't even need it to be solved. I just need someone to be able to hear it. And so we would
Hmm.
ask, what's really important for you right now? Do you want this to be just heard? Do you want some perspectives? Do you want some advice? Because what doesn't work sometimes is if you just share something, you're like, I just need this to be heard. But then guys are asking your advice. You're like, no, no, that's good. I don't really need that right now. Or you just share and they're like, oh, thanks for sharing. And you're like, but I could use some help with it. So anyways, we were really good about being clear about what you need when you are bringing something up. And yeah, I'll just say that, yeah, it can be absolutely life-changing to have guys with similar values, especially dads, help you solve some of these things, or even just, again, just to be able to share and say, look, I just, and guys, this was maybe something that we weren't great at, is being able to validate. Like, look, I don't need advice, but I would really love for you to see into my experience, and I feel like I just need to be seen and heard with this right now.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So true. I love that. Well, maybe on next week or another week we can kind of go through a little bit more. Maybe we can go through an experience ourselves
right,
that we can
right.
kind of share kind of what that experience is like,
Sure.
and share the steps that we go through every week that we went through with our groups.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Maybe we should bring some more guys on and have a full blown session.
Yay, that'd be cool.
Cool. All right. Well,
All
thanks,
right, man.
man,
Well,
for
hey,
the great chat and for who you are and making this all work.
no problem, man. Thank you so much.